Good morning.
Good morning, Judge.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Tell me your name.
Brandon Morris.
Miss Morris, you are here today on a charge of misdemeanor assault. This is the time for your initial appearance. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I have had the opportunity to review some information about your case, and it looks like, Miss Morris, you also have felonies going on. Is that the
Yes,
case?
ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So
If you want to release me on those, that'd be nice.
we're not even going to talk about those today. So
Okay,
you're gonna stay there on those. So we're just here to talk about the misdemeanor assault. So
Okay.
what I want you to know is regardless of what we do on your conditions of release today, you're going to be held obviously on whatever your felony conditions are. Okay. So what I'm actually going to do on the misdemeanor charge is release you on that charge. Your conditions of release will be don't have contact with the victim and don't go back to the incident location. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if you are still in custody on January 27th, 2025 at 8:30 in the morning on your felony matters, then you're going to appear via video for that court date for the justice court matter. But
Okay.
if you get released on your felony matter before that January date, you are going to have to show up at justice court in order to get that taken care of. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am. So I show up. I know I won't be released, so they'll just bring me here from my cell and I'll deal with it then.
Yes. So
Correct.
if you are still in custody on January 27th,
I will be.
the jail will make sure that you appear for your justice court hearing on January 27th at 8:30. I do need to tell you, Ms. Morris, that if for some reason you do get released and you fail to show up for that hearing, that a warrant could issue for your arrest. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. You are all done for today.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
Mr. Graham. Morning, Your Honor.
Good morning. Tell me your name.
Come on, Christopher Graham.
Mr. Graham, you are here today on a charge of aggravated domestic violence. It is a felony offense. It is a felony offense. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this matter. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today.
Yes, Your Honor.
I've had the opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services on this matter. It tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of this offense. I know you looked puzzled when I said this was a misdemeanor. I know that this was a felony. So this incident involved a fight with your brother, and a knife was used. But the reason that this became a felony is because you have 3 misdemeanor priors for domestic violence. So that's why you now have the aggravated domestic violence charge and why this is a felony.
Yes, Your Honor. I do understand that.
Okay. Don't say anything about any of the rest of it. You just looked puzzled as to why you were sitting here on a felony. So I'm telling you that's why. All right. So we're here to set your conditions of release today. In reviewing pretrial services information, I've also had a chance to review the state's recommendation of $4,000 bond. Mr. Poston, I am inclined to release him to pretrial services. Did you want to be heard further?
No, Your Honor, the state was on the bubble on this one. The narrative in the complaints didn't state a lot other than the fact that this, as the court has indicated, was his 4th time around when it comes to DV. So above and beyond that, no, Your Honor.
Defense, do you want to be heard?
No, Your Honor. To pretrial service, that sounds good for defense.
So, Mr. Graham, I will say, pay attention here for just a second.
Yes, Your Honor.
I am going to release you. However, pretrial services was not able to get a hold of the victims in this case. So what that means is My order is going to include that you not have any contact with your brother and you can't go back to the incident location. So if that's where you live, you're going to have to find somewhere else to go.
That's understandable.
Can you do that?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So I'll release you to pretrial services. It means you have to check in with that agency as they direct, participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You cannot commit any acts of domestic violence, no alcohol or illegal drugs, no firearms while this case is going on. And as I've said, no contact with the victims and don't return to the incident location. Do you need to get belongings from that residence?
I think, yeah, just my clothes, probably, yeah.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is check a box on your release conditions form that says you can return one time with a police escort to collect your belongings. So if you choose to do that, you need to make sure that you contact a law enforcement agency, call the police, or go to a station and hand them this order. They'll go with you. You can also talk with your attorney at the public defender's office if you need assistance with that. Do you understand all those conditions of release, Mr. Graham?
Yes, Your Honor.
Your next hearing is going to be January 15th, 2025 at 1:30. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you're expected to show up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Since you're going to be out of custody, it's important you stay in contact with your attorney so you don't miss any court dates. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes, Your Honor.
You're all done.
Let's see, right.
Hi, tell me your name.
Todd Williams.
Mr. Williams, you are here today on domestic violence charges of disorderly conduct, assault, criminal damage, interfering with a judicial proceeding. It looks like there's a couple counts of disorderly conduct and criminal damage. These are misdemeanor offenses out of Tucson City Court. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. This is also the time for your arraignment as well as your initial appearance on these charges at City Court. You are presumed innocent. I am going to enter not guilty pleas on your behalf today. I've reviewed information provided by pretrial services in this matter. Tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of this offense. So if I release you on these charges today, Mr. Williams, you are not going to be allowed to have any contact with Miss Polanco at all.
Who?
Or Griselda Polanco. She's
What? Man, why?
because she's one of the victims in this case.
I can't talk to her
No.
or anything.
No.
I'll respect your wishes. I don't know. I don't understand. Is there any other people involved in this case that I don't know about, or does she have another case or something?
Your sister, but she says she's fine having contact with you. So I'm not going to limit contact with your sister. So your sister and Miss Polanco are the victims listed in this case. So when I review information from pretrial services, they were able to reach your victim or your sister who said she's fine having contact with you. But we could not get a hold of Miss Polanco before this hearing. So if I release you today, you are not, and it's not my wish, sir, it's an order that you not have any contact with Griselda Polanco. You can't call her, you can't go to her house, you can't have anything to do with her. If you do, it's going to be a violation of the court's order. So that may change from a judge in the future, but starting today, you cannot have contact with her. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am. I just don't understand who this woman is exactly, because the first and last name, these are two different women to me. So
does Griselda have a different last name than Polanco?
yes,
What's her other last name?
Mendez. and Miss Polanco's name has a different first name. Polanco's first name is actually Felicia.
Okay,
So-
well, the information that I have, sir, is that it is Griselda Polanco who's listed as the victim. So whatever confusion there may be, you'll have to work that out in the future at Tucson City Court. But for today, that is my order. And if I release you, you do have to abide by that. Will you do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Then I am going to release you today on your promise to appear at a future court date. I'll give you in a second. You're to commit no acts of domestic violence and not have any contact with Griselda Polanco Mendez. You know who I'm talking about. Don't have contact with her. Don't go to where she lives or where she works. Your next court date is going to be January 28th, 2025 at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's going to be in front of Judge Millian at Tucson City Court. When you get released later today, you are going to get copies of your paperwork. It's going to have that court date and time as well as the address for Tucson City Court and where you need to appear. So make sure you get that when you get released today, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
If you fail to appear on January 28th of 2025 at 1:30 in front of Judge Millian, a warrant could issue for your arrest. That hearing could also go forward in your absence. They could set future hearings, including a trial. And if you fail to appear at trial and you're convicted and can't be sentenced in 90 days, you're also going to lose your right to a direct appeal. Do you understand all those consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes, ma'am.
Right, you're all done for today, Mr. Williams.
Thank you.
He sent the recommendations. If you want to see them.
Oh, yeah.
That's all. Yeah. Oh, my God.
Thank you. I know.
Morning, tell me your name.
Samuel Hamilton.
Mr. Hamilton, you were here today on a charge of disorderly conduct. It is a domestic violence offense. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I have had the opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services. Tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of this offense. If I release you today, sir, will you promise to appear at a court date that I give you in the future at Justice Court?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Here's the other thing for today. Pretrial services was not able to get a hold of your mom, who is the victim in this case. So the order today is going to be that you not have any contact with her at all until that changes. So do you have somewhere else that you can reside?
No, ma'am.
Well, here are your options. You can stay in custody or you can find some place else to reside.
I'll find somewhere else.
So the order, again, is because pretrial services wasn't able to get a hold of your mom. So the court can change that in the future, but from today until that gets changed, you need to abide by that order. Do you understand? All right. So you're going to find somewhere else that you can stay for a little bit?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Then I will release you on your promise to appear. You are not to have any contact with your mom right now. Do not go to where she's living or working. I am going to check on your conditions of release form that if you need to return to the house to pick up your belongings, things that you may have there that you need, that you can do that with law enforcement. So you're going to need to take a copy of the release condition order that you get today when you get out, take it to a nearby police station or call them and let them know that you need to go pick up your belongings. Do not go and sit in front of the house. You're going to meet law enforcement somewhere away from the house and they'll go to the residence with you to get what you need. Do not commit any further acts of domestic violence. Do you understand those conditions of release?
Yes, ma'am.
Your next court date is going to be January 27th, 2025 at 10:30 in the morning. It's going to be at Pima County Justice Court. If you fail to appear at that date and time, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you are all done for today, Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you. Mr. Rogers. Oh, wait.
Morning, tell me your name.
Trel Rogers.
Mr. Rogers, you are here today on charges of criminal damage and 3 counts of disorderly conduct. You do have the right to remain silent on these charges. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I've had the opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services on this case. Looks like they were able to get a hold of your father and grandmother, who are the victims, and they've indicated that you are welcome to return home and to continue to have contact with them. So if I release you today, will you promise to show up at a court date that I give you in the future?
Yes, ma'am.
And then you're not to commit any further acts of domestic violence. Do you understand that condition of release?
Yes, ma'am.
So your next court date is going to be January 21st, 2025 at 8:30 in the morning. That's going to be at Sarita Municipal Court. You do need to appear at that date and time. If you fail to appear, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes, ma'am.
When you get released later today, you should get a copy of your release conditions order, and that's going to have the date and time I just gave you, along with the address for Sarita Court. All right,
All right.
you're all done.
Thank you.
All done. Hi, tell me your name.
Joseph Grant Sewell Jr.
Mr. Sewell, you have several matters that we need to talk about today. There is a warrant for you for issuing bad checks out of Globe. Then there is a warrant out of Pima County Justice Court for a disorderly conduct. And then we are also here to talk about a petition to revoke probation and other Tucson City Court matters. You do have the right to remain silent on all of these cases. Anything you say can and will be used against you. So Mr. Sewell, on the Globe matter, I'm going to release you. What that means is that you're going to need to go to Globe Justice Court on January 9th, 2025 at 10 o'clock in the morning. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
And if you fail to appear at that date and time, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. All right?
Yes, ma'am.
We do need to talk about your other cases here. On your Justice Court warrant, there is a warrant amount for $500. I am going to honor that. So I am setting a bond in your Justice Court disorderly conduct matter of $500. That's going to be a cash or secured bond. You are not to have any contact with the victims or go near the incident location. I am going to appoint Janet Altschuler to represent you. Your next court date on that case is going to be December 27th, 2025 at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. If you are in custody, the jail will make sure to have you appear via video, much like you're doing here today. If you get released, you're going to be responsible for showing up. Do you understand that, Mr. Sewell?
Yes, ma'am.
And then on your Tucson City Court matters, as I've indicated, you're here for a petition to revoke probation. Says that on March 7th of 2024, you were adjudicated guilty of 2 counts of criminal damage, unlawful possession of drug paraphernalia, assault with injury, another assault with the intent to injure, and you were placed on unsupervised probation for a period of 30 months. You were provided with written conditions of probation. And it looks like they are revoking your probation because you failed to attend your court hearings. And that was in front of Judge Blue. Is that a matter that you're familiar with, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
So the charges that we're here for in Tucson City Court are assault, the criminal damage, criminal tampering, assault, and more drug paraphernalia. Many of those do involve the probation revocation that I just discussed. I am going to appoint Janet Altschuler to represent you in that case as well. I am going to impose a $500 cash or secure bond in that case as well. You're going to appear in front of Judge Blue on January 2nd at 1:45. And that's going to be a video review hearing. Your additional conditions of release in the city case: don't have contact with victims and don't return to the incident locations for those matters. If for some reason you do end up posting bond in these matters and you do get released, then you have a different court date for Tucson City Court. That's going to be February 4th, 2025 at 10 a.m. If you get released, Mr. Sewell, you're going to get copies of your court paperwork that's going to have all the information on it about where you need to be and what you need to do. It'll have all the dates and then the courts that you're supposed to appear at. Do you understand all of those conditions of release?
Yes, Your Honor.
And do you understand that if you fail to appear for court hearings, if you do bond out, that they could issue an additional warrant for your arrest?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. You are all done for today, Mr. Sewell.
Yes, Senator.
Where?
On the probation petition. Okay. Good morning, ma'am. Tell me your name.
Heather Henry.
Ms. Henry, you are here today on a couple of matters out of Tucson City Court. One is the an assault domestic violence offense, and then also a warrant for an assault case. Looks like that one dates back to 2022. You do have the right to remain silent on these matters. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I've had the opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services. It does look like they were able to get a hold of your boyfriend, Mr. Mercer, who is the victim in this case. He does say that he is okay having continuing contact with you. So if I release you today on these two charges, will you promise to show up at a court date that I give you in the future at Tucson City Court?
Yes.
You do have to get both of these matters resolved. They're not going to go away. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay. So the additional condition of your release is that you not commit any further acts of domestic violence. Your next court date is going to be January 28th, 2025 at 1:30 in Tucson City Court in front of Judge Millian. This is also the time for your arraignment on the new charge. You are presumed innocent. I'll enter a not guilty plea on your behalf. If you fail to appear for your hearing on January 28th, 2025, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. Also, if you fail to appear, that hearing can go forward in your absence. They could set future hearings, including a trial. And if you get convicted at that trial and can't be sentenced within 90 days, you're going to lose your right to an appeal. Do you understand all those consequences if you fail to appear, Ms. Henry?
Yes.
All right. So when you get released today, you'll get a copy of your conditions of release. It's going to have your court date on it. Make sure you get that. All right.
Okay.
You're all done.
Thank you.
Mr. Henson.
Hi, tell me your name.
Stephen Henson?
Your middle name, Antone?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
You are here today on a warrant out of Tucson City Court for criminal trespass and drug paraphernalia. You do have the right to remain silent on these charges. Anything you say can and will be used against you. So it looks like you failed to appear for a hearing on September 3rd of 2024. If I release you today, will you promise to show up at a court date that I give you?
Most definitely. I thought they dropped those charges.
Apparently not. They're still pending.
Yeah.
So I will release you on your promise to appear. You're not to return to the incident location where the criminal trespass occurred. The victims are there and you can't have contact with them. Your next hearing will be February 3rd, 2025 at 2:00 in the afternoon in front of Judge Cranshaw at Tucson City Court. You do need to appear at that date and time. If you fail to appear, they're going to issue another warrant for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear, Mr. Henson?
Yes.
And do you understand your conditions of release that I've imposed here today?
Yes,
All right, you're all done.
thank you.
Sandoval.
Good morning. Tell me your name.
Muy buenos días. ¿Me puede decir tu nombre?
All right.
Ashley Sandoval.
I don't. Okay. Madam Interpreter, I just want to make sure that she needs the interpreter.
Okay, may I ask, Your Honor?
Yes, please.
Sí, muy buenos días, señora. ¿Usted necesita los servicios del intérprete?
Sí, por favor.
Yes, yes, I do.
Okay. Now, tell me your name, ma'am.
Okay, señorita, ¿me puede decir su nombre, por favor?
Ashley Sandoval.
Ashley Sandoval.
Ms. Sandoval, you are here today on charges of disorderly conduct, a domestic violence offense, and false reporting to law enforcement.
Bueno, señorita Sandoval, muy buenos días. Usted está compareciendo aquí esta mañana por alteración al orden público, un delito que se considera violencia doméstica y también dar falsa información a los agentes del orden público.
This is the time for your initial appearance and arraignment on these charges for Tucson City Court.
Y este es el momento para su comparecencia inicial y también la lectura de cargos que salieron de Tucson City Court.
You are presumed innocent. I'm going to enter not guilty pleas on your behalf.
Se presume que usted es inocente y voy a presentar declaración de no culpable a beneficio de usted.
You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you.
Usted tiene el derecho de permanecer callada. Todo lo que diga puede y será utilizado en su contra.
I've had the opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services that tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of the offense.
Ahora ya tuve la oportunidad de revisar la información que me proporcionó los servicios previos al juicio, que me dice un poco de usted y también de las circunstancias alrededor del delito.
If I release you today, ma'am, will you promise to appear at a court date that I give you in the future?
Si yo ordeno que usted salga libre el día de hoy, señorita Sandoval, ¿usted me promete que se va a presentar a su audiencia en un futuro?
Sí.
Yes.
You are also not going to be allowed to have any contact with Cirilio Orquez, who is the victim in this case.
Y también voy a ordenar que usted no va a poder tener contacto con Cerelio Orquez, que es la víctima en este caso.
Sí.
Yes.
So you understand that if I release you, you can't have any contact of any kind with him.
Y sí le queda claro que si yo ordeno que salga libre usted, no puede tener ningún tipo de contacto con él. Ujú.
Is that a yes?
¿Es un sí?
Sí.
Yes.
All right, I am going to release you on your promise to appear. You are not to commit any acts of domestic violence, and as we've said, do not have any contact with the victim. Don't go anywhere near where he's living, working, or have any contact.
Bueno, entonces voy a ordenar que usted salga libre el día de hoy con la promesa de que usted se va a presentar a sus próximas audiencias y que no va a cometer ningún acto adicional de violencia doméstica y tampoco puede tener ningún tipo de contacto con la víctima. Usted no puede ir al lugar donde vive la víctima, donde trabaja y nada de contacto con él.
Do you understand all of those conditions of release?
¿Le quedaron claras todas esas condiciones de liberación?
Sí.
Yes.
Your next hearing is January 28th, 2025 at 1:30 at Tucson City Court in front of Judge Millian.
Su próxima audiencia va a ser el 28 de enero del 2025 a la 1:30 de la tarde en Tucson City Court ante la honorable juez Millian.
If you fail to appear at that time, a warrant could issue for your arrest. The hearing could also go forward in your absence. They could set future hearings, including a trial. And if you can't be sentenced within 90 days, if you get convicted, you'll lose your right to an appeal.
Bueno, señora, usted tiene que comparecer a esa audiencia. Si no se presenta a esa audiencia, se va a emitir una orden de arresto para que la detengan. Y también si no se presenta, la audiencia va a seguir adelante aunque usted no esté presente. Y si en un futuro tiene juicio y no le pueden imponer la pena en el juicio porque no se presentó en 90 días de la imposición de la pena, entonces usted pierde su derecho a apelar el caso.
Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
¿Le
Sí.
queda claro las consecuencias de no presentarse a sus audiencias?
Sí.
Yes.
All right, you're all done for today.
Bueno, ya terminó por el día de hoy.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Señor Valdés. ¿Cómo siento ahí, por favor?
Your Honor, I'm having a bit of sound issues. Can you hear me?
I can.
Thank you.
Hi, tell me your name.
Buenos días, ¿me puede decir su nombre?
Jorge Valdés Leiva.
Jorge Valdés Leiva.
And would you like the assistance of the interpreter, sir?
Señor, ¿usted quisiera los servicios del intérprete?
Sí, está bien.
Yes, it's all right.
You are here today on charges of criminal damage, DUI, and looks like the DV, it's a domestic violence criminal damage charge.
Bueno, señor, usted está compareciendo aquí esta mañana por daños a la propiedad, por manejar bajo la influencia o un DUI, y parece daños a la propiedad que se considera también una ofensa grave.
Your DUI charge is an extreme DUI.
Ahora, la acusación de DUI o manejar bajo la influencia es un DUI grave, extremo.
We are here for your initial appearance, and this is the time to set conditions of release.
Y esta es la comparecencia inicial y este es el momento de fijar condiciones de liberación.
I will let you know that your wife is in the courtroom today.
Le quiero hacer saber que su esposa se encuentra en el juzgado presente el día de hoy.
I've had the opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services, tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of the offense.
Ahora, le quiero avisar que ya tuve la oportunidad de revisar la información que me proporcionaron los servicios previos al juicio y también me dice algo de usted y de las circunstancias del delito.
I will tell you, sir, that regardless of what I do on conditions of release today, it does appear that there is a hold from the Bureau of Immigrations and Customs Enforcement.
Bueno, le quiero avisar, señor, que muy aparte de lo que yo fije como condiciones de liberación el día de hoy, parece que usted tiene una orden de retención del Servicio de Migración y Aduanas.
So that means that you will be held until that issue gets resolved, regardless of what conditions I impose today.
Eso quiere decir que usted va a quedarse detenido hasta que ese asunto se resuelva.
I've had the opportunity to review the state's recommendation in this case. They're asking for a $5,000 bond.
Ahora,
Mr.
ya tuve la oportunidad de revisar lo que recomienda el fiscal y ellos están solicitando una fianza de $5,000. Y, señor Poston, ¿qué me quiere decir?
Your Honor, in this case, this looks like this wasn't driving from point A to point B. This was absolutely unnecessary. It looks like it was stunt driving. He was turning donuts in a cul-de-sac and apparently slammed into a vehicle. Secondly, we're looking at the fact that it is extreme. It was a high level of alleged intoxication. And then finally, Your Honor, ICE can be somewhat fickle when it comes to enforcing their holds. State would consider him a flight risk if there is an issue of residency. 5,000.
Y dice May I, Your Honor?
Yes, no, of course.
Thank you. Poston, que esto no es como que hubo un accidente de un conductor que va de un punto A a un punto B. No, más bien lo que pasó es que en una calle cerrada el señor se estrelló contra otro vehículo y estaba altamente embriagado. Y también cuando se trata de estas órdenes de detención de ICE, pues también es una cuestión que está en contra del señor y también tenemos preocupación de que el señor pueda huir. Entonces solicitamos una fianza de $5,000.
Defense?
Your Honor, it's unclear to counsel why there is exactly an ICE hold. But I guess since there is, we'll ask for a $100 bond.
I'm going to
Dice
impose,
la-
sorry, go ahead.
Dice el abogado defensor que no nos queda claro a nosotros por qué existe una orden de retención de la agencia de ICE, de inmigración y de aduanas. Más, sin embargo, pues pedimos que si se le va a fijar fianza al señor, se le fije una fianza de $100.
I am going to impose a $5,000 cash or secured bond today. If you post that bond and your ICE matter is resolved, then you'll be released to pretrial services.
Bueno, señor, estoy considerando que sí le voy a fijar una fianza de $5,000 en efectivo o en garantía. Y si usted deposita la fianza y si se resuelve entonces este asunto con emigración o con ICE, usted va a quedar libre bajo la supervisión de los servicios previos al juicio.
Your additional conditions of release are that you participate in any monitoring or treatment directed by pretrial, don't commit any acts
Y-
of domestic violence.
Y como condición adicional de liberación, usted debe de participar en cualquier tratamiento o monitoreo que le ordene o le indique los servicios previos al juicio y no cometer actos adicionales de violencia doméstica.
You're not allowed to have any alcohol or illegal drug, don't drive without a valid license, and you can't have any firearms while this case is going on.
Y usted no puede consumir bebidas alcohólicas, tampoco drogas ilegales, y no puede poseer ningún arma de fuego y no puede conducir un vehículo sin una licencia válida o vigente mientras está pendiente este caso.
Your wife is listed as one of the victims in this case, and she is present here today. You are, according to the information in the report.
Y su esposa está descrita como una de las víctimas y está aquí presente el día de hoy, está en la información que tenemos en el juzgado.
It looks like your son and daughter-in-law are also listed as victims.
Y también parece que su hija y su yerno también están descritos o escritos como víctimas.
I am not going to restrict contact at this time, so you're allowed to have contact with them, but you are not allowed to commit any further acts of domestic violence.
Ahora, no le voy a restringir el contacto con ellos por ahora, pero a usted se le ordena no cometer actos adicionales de violencia doméstica.
Do you understand all those conditions of release?
¿Le quedó claro, señor, todas esas condiciones de liberación?
Sí.
Yes.
Your next hearing date is a preliminary hearing on January 6, 2025 at 1:30.
Su próxima audiencia es una audiencia preliminar el día 6 de enero del 2025 a la 1:30 de la tarde.
That hearing may or may not occur, but you're going to be responsible for showing up at all future hearings, and if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest.
Esa audiencia quizás se lleve a cabo, señor, quizás no, pero es su responsabilidad presentarse a todas las audiencias futuras. Si usted no se presenta a una audiencia programada, se puede emitir una orden para que lo vuelvan a detener.
You understand the consequences if you fail to appear.
¿Le queda claras las consecuencias si usted no se presenta a sus audiencias?
Sí.
Yes.
All right, you're all done for today.
Muy
Your Honor,
bien.
may I borrow the interpreter for a brief moment?
Sure.
So your attorney will be in contact with you shortly.
Bueno, dice el abogado, el abogado que está designado a su caso, señor, muy pronto se va a poner en comunicación con usted.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Madam Interpreter, I think that's all we have for Spanish speakers.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. May the interpreter be excused.
Yes, of course. Have a wonderful day.
You
Thank
too,
you,
Your
ma'am.
Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day, ma'am. Hi, tell me your name.
Brian Davis.
Mr. Davis, you are here today on a charge of aggravated assault. It is a domestic violence charge. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this case. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've had the opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services about you and the incident that occurred here today, or yesterday rather.
That's,
I've also had a chance to review information provided by pretrials or by the state with respect to your conditions of release, which is what we're here to talk about today. It does look like the state is asking for a $7,500 bond. I am inclined to release to pretrial services as long as Mr. Davis does not return to anywhere the victim is residing. Mr. Poston, did you want to be heard?
Your Honor, based on the interim complaints, it's been alleged that the defendant and one other person, apparently his brother, decided to set upon assaulting the victim, and the victim suffered a broken nose. And based on that, the state considers him a risk to the victim. And all things considered, Your Honor, this does fit ag assault, temporary disfigurement, and it is DV. It was in a setting. What we have here, Your Honor, is this person is a risk.
So at least with the information that I have, it looks like the victim in the case is, I don't see anything about the brother assisting, but regardless, it looks like it is the boyfriend of his mom. And it does look like Mr. Davis could continue to stay with his girlfriend at the hotel, and that would be away from the victim. So defense?
Yes, Judge. He does stay at the hotel with his girlfriend, which is nowhere near the victim. He understands that he's not to contact the victim, and he's got full-time employment here in Tucson, doing some medical supply. So it doesn't appear that he understands the conditions, and doesn't appear that he's going to be a risk to the victim.
So Mr. Davis, I am going to release you to pretrial services. You are going to have to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You're not allowed to have any alcohol, no illegal drugs, no firearms while this case is going on. And you are not to have any contact with the victim. Do not go near where he is living or working. Do you understand those conditions?
yes, I do.
Your next hearing is going to be January 15th, 2025 at 1:30. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you're going to be expected to show up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
I do.
All right, you're all done.
I'm sorry. This is what I called her.
Yeah, they're not,
Talk to.
but they should call it within a day.
And
He's coming in right now.
Hi, tell me your name.
Ricardo Garcia?
Mr. Garcia, is your middle name Miguel?
Yes, correct.
Right. You were here on multiple matters today out of multiple jurisdictions, warrants for several of those. We are going to start with the felony case that you were here on. It is a warrant out of Pima County Superior Court for drug possession and drug paraphernalia. We'll talk about your other warrants here in a moment. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney on the felony offenses. I'm appointing the public defender's office, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services, tells me a little bit about you, the circumstances of your offense, and as I've indicated, the multiple warrants out of multiple other jurisdictions are a factor for conditions of release that we're setting here today.
Okay.
I've also had the opportunity to review information provided by the state. It looks like they are asking for a $1,500 bond. Mr. Poston?
Your Honor, this is based off a warrant, and it's the typical case was dismissed and then refiled, and it was the defendant's obligation to keep his address current with the court. That said, he was looking at Looking at the big picture, Your Honor, he has a history of failing to appear, and previously of failed to abide by conditions of probation whilst on PTS. Therefore, $1,500, Your Honor.
Defense?
Your Honor, I see that they seem to be drug crimes. And he's smart court available. And he's just expressed.
He's not going to be smart court available because it's a warrant and he's already scheduled for arraignment. So the substance abuse treatment court, he's not eligible for that at this time.
My apologies. So yeah, I would ask for a small bond in this matter.
So I am going to set a bond in this case for $1,500. It is going to be cash or secured. If you do post that bond, then you can be released to pretrial services. You're to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You can't have any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms while this case is going on. Largely because, Mr. Garcia, you have multiple warrants out of multiple jurisdictions. You just you don't go to court. So that's going to be the court's order on the felony. Nope, you can talk to your attorney. Your next hearing in your felony case is going to be your arraignment. It's going to be January 2nd, 2025 at 1:30. If you do stay in custody and don't post the bond, then the jail will make sure that you appear via video for that hearing. If you do post your bond and you do get released on that case, then it's your responsibility to show up at that date and time, or they're going to issue another warrant for your arrest. Do you understand your conditions of release in that case?
Yes.
All right. We're next going to talk about your warrant out of Marana City Court. On that one, I am going to release you. That's for shoplifting and drug paraphernalia. I'm releasing you on that one. Don't have any contact with the victim. Don't go back to the incident location for where the shoplifting occurred. You are going to be seen today at noon by the Marana City Court judge. So your next hearing is going to be today at noon. So you're not going to be released. You're going to see her. So hopefully that will give you the opportunity to at least get that Marana case resolved in some form. Do you understand all of that, sir?
Yes.
Your next case is out of Oro Valley. I am going to release you on your Oro Valley case. Looks like that one is drug paraphernalia. I'm going to give you a court date in that one of January 22nd at 10:30 in the morning. You may be released by then. So if you're released, you have to appear at Oro Valley City Court January 22nd, 2025 at 10:30, or they could issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand?
Yes, true.
If you are still in custody on your felony matter, then you'll likely appear via video. So that date may change. I'm not sure how that works with the jail. But if you are still in custody, you should talk with your attorney about these other matters that you have pending. All right. And then we have another matter out of Pima County Justice Court. That one is for shoplifting, and you failed to appear on 2 separate occasions for that hearing. Again, sir, I'm going to release you. Don't go back to the incident locations. Don't have any contact with the victims. Same thing. If you get released, your next court date in that case is going to be January 27th, 2025 at 9:30 in the morning. Did you hear the date and time?
I did, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So
Sorry.
if you get released on the felony, you need to show up January 27th, 2025 at 9:30. So you'll have the opportunity to get all of these misdemeanor cases resolved if you go to all of those court dates. Do you understand?
Ma'am, can I just say something?
You might want to talk to your attorney first.
It's fine. I just wanted to let you know that I was gonna be going to rehab, got arrested, and I would just really like to do that. I would really.
So you'll have the opportunity, sir, you're going to have the opportunity to do that if you talk to your attorney. So I don't know how long you'll be in custody. Again, you'll have your Marana case today. I've given you dates further out in January for the other matters. So your attorney can file a motion to modify conditions of release, or it may be reviewed by another entity. And if you want to go to treatment, obviously that would be encouraged. But at this point, you're going to be held on that bond and then talk with your attorney and they'll be able to see if something else can be done if you have treatment as an available option. All right.
Thank you.
You're all done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, it's only three we got thoughts.
Correct? Yeah. No, sir. That's the check box.
Was.
Can I get a?
Hi, tell me your name.
Minecraft.
Is your middle name Vicente?
Vicente.
All right. So you were here today on felony charges of narcotic drug possession, dangerous drug possession, and an aggravated DUI. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this matter. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. We are also going to be talking about a Tucson City Court case. Looks like there was a warrant for a drug paraphernalia charge and you failed to appear on that. So we're going to talk about that one here in just a minute. It's like 2018, April of 2018.
In and out of prison, like I would thought it like I can clear. It got cleared up.
I don't know, sir, how it happened. I'm just saying I'm seeing I'm seeing you on that today as well. I don't know what the history is. So those are all the matters we're going to deal with today. We'll talk about the felonies first. I've had the opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services, tells me a little bit about you, the circumstances of the offense. I've also had a chance to review the state's recommendation as to conditions of release. Looks like they're asking for a $7,500 bond. State?
Yes, Your Honor. There's allegations include an absolute drunken stupor when he was in a running vehicle in a parking lot on South Alvernon. He also was alleged to have been in possession of both meth and heroin. He has an ag DUI, which, notwithstanding searches that haven't turned anything up, there seems to be a reason that his license was suspended. He's also got a fairly extensive history of violent crimes and crimes against persons. The DUI, it turns out now that I see it, was a straightforward DUI, and we've also looking at robbery against a senior out of Nevada, burglary, and armed robbery again. State considers him a flight risk. He's NVCA, yes, and then finally he is a 6 and a 4. $7,500, Your Honor.
Defense.
Your Honor, the victim, the defendant here has passed, but he takes care of his grandmother.
No, my mom.
Sorry, he takes care of his mother,
My daughter.
and then his
Single
daughter.
father.
He's a lifelong Tucson resident. I don't see any flight risk with that, and he's got full-time employment, working in healthcare. I'm gonna ask that we can do a $1,000 bond.
I am going to impose a $7,500 cash or secured bond on this case. If you do post that bond, Mr. Kraft, then you'll be released to pretrial services. If you get released to them, you're ordered to participate in any monitoring or treatment that they require you to participate in. They will require you to participate in alcohol screening. You must do that. You are not allowed to have any alcohol or illegal drugs. You are not to drive without a valid license. You do not have a valid license. You do not drive. You're not allowed to have any firearms while this case is going on. Do you understand all of those conditions of release?
No, absolutely. I truly apologize. I had 6 years clean and I relapsed last night. That's what happened.
Your next hearing date on
I
this
took-
case is going to be January 6th, 2025 at 1:30. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you're going to be responsible for showing up at all future court dates. If you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. If you're in custody, the jail will make sure that you get to your next hearing. However, if you do post bond and you get released, it's your responsibility to make sure you show up at all future hearings. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, we do need to talk about your Tucson City Court case. As I've mentioned, it's a warrant from 2018. Whatever you thought may have happened with that, it's obviously still pending, so you're gonna have to go to court and get that taken care of, okay? Your next hearing on that, I'm gonna release you on your promise to appear for that. Your next hearing is gonna be February 7th, 2025 at 9 a.m. That's what's called a non-transport review hearing. So if for some reason you're still in custody, the jail will make sure you appear via video. If you get released, you are expected to show up on February 7th, 2025 at 9. And if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
All right,
Yes, ma'am.
we're all done for today.
Is any of my family there?
I don't see them on that.
No.
Have a security section, please. Look,
Hi, tell me your name.
Benjamin Allamore.
Mr. Moore, you are here today on charges of felony criminal damage. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of this hearing here today. I've had the chance to review information provided by pretrial services on this case. It does look like you have another matter pending in Pima County Superior Court under CR 2024-1834. You were released to pretrial services on that case. In reviewing the state's recommendation, it looks like they are asking that you be held without bond because you were on release to pretrial in that other matter. And the state has made that request on this case. The court does need to do that at this time. So you will be held. Hang on. So I'm going to give you a hearing date for your attorney and you to appear in court so you can see whether or not that hold without bond is going to remain. Mr. Poston, anything else from you on that?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Does the defense want to make any kind of record?
No, Your Honor.
So is it okay for Tucson PD to steal people's property? Is that
No,
legal?
So, Mr. Moore, your next hearing on
Because that's
this,
what they keep doing. They keep on stealing my property.
your next,
You're not helping yourself there.
Yeah, why not?
your next,
I want to know why it's okay for law enforcement to be fucking criminals.
your next hearing is December 31st, 2024 at 2:30 in the afternoon. So you'll be in custody for that hearing. Your attorney will come talk to you, Mr. Moore, and you'll have a chance to explain everything to your attorney. And then you'll go to court on that date. The jail will transport you and they can talk about your release conditions at that time.
I'm tired of being treated like a criminal by the police when they're the criminals.
Your next hearing after that no bond hearing is a preliminary hearing on January 6, 2025 at 1:30. That may or may not occur, but you have to show up at all future court dates or a warrant could issue for your arrest. If you, well, if
Y'all fabricate a misdemeanor into a felony.
If you're in custody, then the jail will make sure you get transported. But if you get out by that date, it's going to be important you stay in contact with your attorney. All right, Mr. Moore?
Yeah, thank you for making it possible for me to slide in the city. Yo.
Hi, tell me your name.
Eddie Ricardo Eagles.
Mr. Olmos, you were here today on charges of aggravated assault. It is a impeding breathing charge as well as kidnapping. These are domestic violence offenses. That aggravated assault count appears to have 2 counts to it. So 2 separate counts on that one. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this matter. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office in this case, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've had the opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services. Tells the court a little bit about you and the circumstances of this offense. I've also had an opportunity to review the state's recommendation as to conditions of release, which is what we're here to set today at your initial appearance. The state's asking for a $50,000 bond. Mr. Poston?
Your Honor, this person has a rather extensive felony record of aggravated assault, as well as probation revocation. He's got a misdemeanor record for DV assault, DV trespass, DV threats and intimidation. Your Honor, this case involves a rather violent assault. During an argument, the defendant is alleged to have grabbed the victim by her throat, squeezed her throat, choked her to the point where she had a headache, punched her twice in the face, grabbed her by the jaw, and apparently pulled her down by her own jaw. Victim tried to escape. Defendant prevented her from doing so, and the police noted redness to her neck consistent with strangulation, scrape on her lip, swelling to her face. Victim also related that defendant threatened to shoot her. The parties were apparently in a romantic or sexual relationship. She does object to defendant's release, does not want contact, and the state need not remind the court of the high levels of lethality associated with strangulation, how it is a prelude to homicide very often. And finally, the Form 4C indicates a high risk, $50,000, Your Honor.
Defense.
Your Honor, the defendant here can stay at a different location than the girlfriend. He can go stay with his parents if released. He's got full-time employment, and a lot of these priors mentioned by the state are old. I mean, I think shouldn't be. Yeah, they're old priors, and I would ask for a much lower bond than 50,000. If we could do something below the $10,000 range.
So the court will note that I do have the intimate partner risk assessment in the file, and I have considered that as well as the victim input as to conditions of release. I'm going to impose a bond today in the amount of $25,000. That's cash or secured. If you're able to post that bond, Mr. Olmos, then you'll be released to pretrial services. You'll be ordered to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You can't have any alcohol, no illegal drugs, and no firearms while this case is going on. You are not to commit any further acts of domestic violence. You are not allowed to have any contact with the victim in this case. Do not go to where she's living or working. Do not return to the incident location for any reason. This order for no contact with the victim applies for as long as you remain in custody as well. You're going to be given access to phones and tablets. You are not to communicate with the victim for any of those conditions of release.
Yes.
Your next hearing is January 6, 2025 at 1:30. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you're going to be responsible for showing up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, a warrant will issue for your arrest. If you remain in custody, the jail will make sure to transport you to hearings, or you'll appear via video, much like you're doing here today. But if you do get released, it's your responsibility to stay in contact with your attorney to be aware of any date changes. Do you understand all that, Mr. Olmos?
Yes, I do.
You're all done for today.
So this is the next court case.
And Mr. Smith. Have a seat there, sir.
Hi, tell me your name.
Victor Smith.
Mr. Smith, you are here today on a charge of burglary in the second degree. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney. In this matter, I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've had the opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services, tells me a little bit about you. I've also had the opportunity to review the state's recommendation as to your conditions of release, which is what we're here to do today. The state is asking for a $5,000 bond. I am inclined to release to pretrial services. Mr. Poston, did you want to be heard?
Yes, Your Honor. This person went over to the victim's apartment, apparently wishing to see the victim, and when she did not want him inside, he basically pushed his way in, damaging the door, and then stealing a television that apparently he had given this person days before. Your Honor, this was potentially very violent. This person forced entry, caused property damage, threatened the person in there, and took and stole from them. State is concerned that this person may be escalating. 5,000.
I intend to release to pretrial. Defense, do you want to be heard?
With pretrial, that's appropriate. There's concerns that he has a small puppy at home that is crated up, and it'd be really good to go see that puppy.
So, Mr. Smith, I am going to release you to pretrial services today, so you'll get released. You are not going to be allowed to have any contact with the victim in this case. Don't return to the incident location at all. Those are your conditions. You're going to have to stay in contact with pretrial. You can't possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and no firearms while this case is going on. Do you understand all those conditions? Your next court date is going to be January 15th, 2025 at 1:30. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you're going to be responsible for showing up at all future court dates. Because you'll be released, it's important to stay in contact with your attorney so that you're aware if any court dates change. If you don't show up, they could issue a warrant for you. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes.
All right, you're all done for today, Mr. Smith.
Is your next is how to get in touch with someone from counties. Thank you.
All right, we are all done. Thank you, everyone.